What is up with copyright strikes on YouTube? I have never had any claims, and all of a sudden I had 2 of the videos on the last week be claimed for music copyright issues, and I had now today another claim for a video that I made 2.5 years ago that was fine all along. But all of a sudden it isn't anymore? Choosing a nice fitting soundtrack for your video is absolutely not the easiest thing in the world. It is actually one of the hardest parts in creating a good cinematic video or even just a little sequence. But the problem is, with music being a copyrighted product, of course, and there's a lot of value in that, and I understand that there's a lot of artists that want that ability to make money from music, it is really annoying when music that you thought was free gets claimed all of a sudden. And I don't really understand why that works like years after the fact and years of the video actually being online, and me at this point of my creator career not even being able to monetize the video, but the artists that claim the video, they can monetize it no matter what. Now this brings up a couple of issues. One of those being that, in my opinion, me using an audio track does not necessarily give the audio track artist 100% of the earning rights. Why is it at the moment that YouTube gives 100% of the earnings of this video to the audio artist? Why isn't it something where actually the audio artist gets a share for, let's say, the amount of minutes that are played of that track, or maybe even just a percentage based on music being valued at a certain level? Now I understand that there's a whole bunch of problems, like figuring out if this is actually just a ripoff of the music, if the video has anything to do with the track, if the video is adding value besides this music track. But right now the system just straight up, my content creation that I actually put into this, my video creation, all the work that is attached to making this just goes away into nothingness, and the audio track is all that matters, and all the money goes to the music artist, and I do not see that as a fair deal. The other thing is that I think it is quite the labor to actually find a track for the music. Now, I know there's platforms like Epidemic Sound and Artlist that make this easier, and I am planning to get something like that. This also brings up another issue, which is that making these videos is a lot of investment for each creator, and most of it is gear, but it also comes with software. For example, if you want to use the Adobe Creative Cloud with Premiere Pro, After Effects, and all that kind of stuff, Lightroom, Photoshop, you have to look, like, you're looking at about 60 to, like, depending on if you're a student or not, but like I'm paying $60 a month just for the Adobe Creative Suite, and that's a great deal. It's an amazing software, but it's a cost that I have to kind of get up somehow. Then we have music licensing, which I'm just talking about, is also another cost. Buying tracks is practically impossible for someone who's not making the views, not making money with those videos yet, and getting the subscription to any of those audio libraries like Epidemic Sound or Artlist is also a cost that is attached to making these kind of videos. And now, I recently saw a lot of people going to Patreon to kind of start funding their creative endeavors and giving the community an opportunity to actually fund that creation. And I think that that is a really powerful thing, because most of those creators, and I want to be one of those, still produce a bunch or even most of their creations in the public, accessible for anybody. And you don't have to be a Patreon to get their main product. But if you have the funds and if you want to get certain perks, then you can go to Patreon and support your artist that you want to kind of give a little bit of a help in creating more of what they already do. Then you can do that with a platform like Patreon. And I think it's been an interesting couple of weeks on Patreon. More and more people have started making content there. More and more creators that I follow have started putting a Patreon out there and are getting great support from their community. And that is something that I think is definitely a great step into an interesting direction. But on top of this thought, I also came up with another question, which is, if you are supported by Patreon, can you still do sponsored content with companies and working together with brands? And in my opinion, that is something where I want to just put a thought out there. and that is that I think that it's totally fine for a creator to still do brand deals, but I think one of the most amazing things with something like Patreon is that you get an opportunity to actually fund your lifestyle or your creations with your fans, but you can do so much more with the support of a brand. But it also gives you the freedom to actually make better choices, and you don't have to just rely on brand deals to make money. You don't have to rely on advertisement on YouTube. You can create what you need to create, what you want to create, what the fans of you want you to create, and you can just put it out there into the world. And if you have an appealing brand deal that you think and you actually believe in, then that is something that I believe is still okay for a YouTuber, a creator, musician, traveler, whoever, to kind of mix Patreon with something like a brand deal. To wrap this video up, I'm really annoyed with music claims on YouTube. The way they work right now, I think, is not very genuine and it's not really fair to all the creators. I also think that Patreon people can still do brand deals even though they are supported by a community, and I like the influx of Patreons being out there and people going to Patreon and building a community there and building a platform there. I personally took that chance and also created a Patreon page, and I am not quite sure yet where this will go. It is kind of in a beta state, and I'm not sure if the tiers will stay that way, or I also want to kind of like beef it up a little more in the future. But it's definitely something that will fund more and better creations and give more time and effort into those creations, because right now there's a mixture between work and client work and this kind of creating content. But with the support from Patreons, for example, music licensing through Artlist could be achieved much more easily, and then the video quality could be that much higher. So ending where I started, I will link my Patreon in the description below and you will find it there, and I would greatly appreciate it. I hope you find something that might be interesting for you, maybe a one-on-one call, maybe a group call, maybe some of the other perks or tiers that I've put up there. Definitely a couple of the things that I want to do once I get more funding, because it definitely is something that is taking a lot of my time, is I want to start a interview podcast, and I would like to get the music licensing from Artlist. Those are two investments that I want to do in the near future to kind of create better and more content, and also to up the game and up the quality of my content with music licensing, so that's much less of an issue than it is right now. I will definitely keep creating these videos on my normal YouTube channel, accessible for everybody, and equally with my podcast that will be accessible for everybody as well. But as I've mentioned before, I think this is an amazing way to kind of help a creator out and also get a little bit of more perks, but the actual content, the big things, are still in the public and they're still for free. And whether you're a supporter on Patreon or just a supporter by views, shares, subscriber, comments, all those things are also very helpful, and I appreciate any of those things equally as much as being a Patreon. And we will definitely find a way to connect in the future. And yeah, let me know your thoughts about all these topics in the comments down below, and I will look forward to connecting and building more, creating more, and overall just making. I hope you are making as well, you're creating, you're building something. I will see you tomorrow in a new video. And until then, I will probably not enjoy the sunset because that's already over. Have a good day. Bye.